and inspiration, so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. He is from the great state of Missouri. He is a physician by trade, but a commercial real estate expert and enthusiast with helping people create and preserve more wealth, especially in the physician field. You can find him at Red Pill Capital, spelled with a K for instead of a C, for capital.com. And he's going to share a little bit about his background on this episode, and then we're going to dive into the biggest tax deferral struggle that he's had when it comes to deferring taxes, and then we're going to introduce the full episode coming as well. So please welcome to the show with me, Gurpreet Padda. Padda, how are you doing, Gurpreet?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thanks for hosting me.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show. Give our listeners a little bit about your background and your current focus.
Yeah. So the short and quick of it is that I have a medical background, but I started in business probably when I was 14 years old. And I started rehabbing homes and things of that nature. I started that even before I could drive. So a lot of times my contract folks that I was working with would have to drop me off at school, and I was taking phone calls in the high school cafeteria during lunch to figure out what they were doing. So I had always a like for construction. But then I went to medical school and I loved it. And as I got through medical school, I realized that I loved what I was doing, but that was not a perfect financial security. Being a physician, you make a lot of money, but you pay a lot of taxes. And so I had to figure out a way that I wasn't dependent upon a job. I wasn't dependent upon somebody else giving me money. And I also had to figure out what those biggest frictions were in wealth creation. And it turns out it's taxes. That's about 40% of your loss of wealth. And once you go into that rabbit hole of what creates wealth and how to maintain it, and you realize that it's a combination of inflation and taxes and things of that nature, and realize that taxes are just a way for the government to align you with their own goals, and get you to do what they can't do efficiently, then it makes perfect sense when you use taxes as a planning vehicle for your own personal wealth growth. And so that's kind of how I ended up starting in construction, going to medical school, and then better understanding the financial aspects of it later.
Amazing. Yeah, and I can't wait to dive into the full interview and on all those spots you just talked about, especially about the taxes, getting the government getting you to do what you can't do, what they can't do efficiently, right? Aligning you with their goals. Very, very interesting. So that being said, for this episode, though, would you give us kind of maybe the biggest frustration you, a client, friend, family member has had when it comes to capital gains tax deferral options, or just in general, what you've maybe a story that you've faced that's been a challenge?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest frustration with capital gains is the component that if you're going to do a 1031 exchange, which is typically in the real estate world, that's how we avoid paying capital gains on something that we've made money at. The biggest issue that you have is you have a limited time frame. You got 45 days to identify, you got 180 days to close. And what happens if you can't perfectly find that next project? So you end up getting shot in your own foot, because you might take a project that doesn't make sense for you, and it creates a false sense of urgency. And we know from a negotiation standpoint, the person who has time urgency is in the worst position and will overpay. And so I never want to be in that position. And rather than do that, I have to come up with alternatives. And some of those alternatives, thank God, were accelerated depreciation. So I could walk away from a 1031 and reset it. And then more recently, I've looked at DSTs, because that's a way that I get to avoid having to pay taxes and still can negotiate for the best possible deal. I believe that ability to give yourself time is more important than even the financial tools. The time is the one thing we can't come back with, and that time element is what I really look for. And so I've always been trying to figure out how to avoid the handcuffs of the 1031 time frame.
Yeah, so well said. We call that optimal timing, right? And on the other side, we call that the shotgun 1031 marriage. You get engaged in 45 days and you need to marry that deal within 180. And sometimes, if you can't find the timing's not lined up, you can oftentimes shoot yourself in the foot or overpay. And so the idea is to sell high and buy low, or sell high and make a good deal with no time urgency. So thank you for sharing that. That being said, for those who want to get in touch with you right now and connect with you, what's the best place for them to connect with you? And perhaps even maybe if you're looking for investors, or talk about what services and connections you'd like to make with them.
Yeah, so probably the best way is just through our website, redpillcapital with a K.com. And then info@redpillcapital.com is the way to reach me the quickest. We're not out in the market looking for investors. If occasionally we find something that's just amazing, and then we'll share it with other people. And we're constantly scouring opportunities. And I probably look at 25 to 30 opportunities a month that are significant. And I limit myself to probably 17 to 20 investments a year, which is not insignificant, but I'm really looking for that amazing deal. And we can talk about some of those deals and how to get to that. But I'm not looking for rates of return of 8 or 12%. I want something that's going to be amazing. I want every deal to be the best deal that I've done and better than the previous one. So it takes me a little bit, and it takes a lot of hustle, and I don't want to waste time on deals that aren't perfect for what I'm trying to achieve.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. And Gurpreet's been modest too. He has owned and managed over I believe over 2 million square feet of commercial space, as well as hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units of multifamily. Is that a fair summary, Gurpreet?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
constantly hustling and looking, and I firmly believe that the velocity of your capital determines your end result. So if you let capital stagnate, that's a mistake. That's actually that's a horrendous mistake. I love holding things for a long period of time, but I like moving that capital and trying to get better rates of return over time. And that's a function of it's a function of using inflation as your friend.
Mhm. Absolutely love that. We're going to dive that to the full episode. So much there. So look for the full episode to drop soon on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, all the major channels. And if you're listening to the show and you're interested, reach out to Gurpreet and check him out at Red Pill Capital, spelled with a K.